Discovery Wildlife Park and your lion presentation. In this enclosure, we have two African lions. Their names are Griffin and Zendaya. Griffin is the handsome man that you see laying just right here. Zendaya is his sister. She is laying just along the side of the enclosure there. The two of them came from a facility in Ontario. That facility is participating in something called the SSP, or the Species Survival Plan. It's a program that a lot of facilities around the world take part in, and the overall goal is to be able to breed animals to have the most diverse genetics possible, so that if at any point in time they can be re-released, they have the best chance of surviving at that point. Now, what you can occasionally see with programs such as SSP is what's called breeding surplus, and that's where not all of the individuals are necessarily needed for breeding purposes, but that doesn't mean that they don't still need a home. So they contacted us, they asked if we could take them in, and we said of course. So we got Griffin at about 3 months old, we got Zendaya about a month later, and the two of them will be here for the rest of their lives. When it comes to the average lifespan of lions in captivity, it's right around that 15 to 20 year period, and right now they are 6 years old. They will be turning 7 on December 24th, so they are Christmas Eve babies, which is cool. And it actually leads me into something. A lot of the times, people like to ask us, how do they do in the winter and where do they go? Believe it or not, they actually stay right here. They absolutely love the winter time. They are Canadian lions. They were born here in Canada, and so they acclimatize very well. They actually have very thick fur in comparison to their wild African counterparts. So they love the snow. In fact, lions don't really care for the heat all too much, even though they naturally come from an area that is warm. In fact, they sleep about 18 to 20 hours a day. That is literally almost the entire day. And the main reasoning for that is because that's when they're trying to sleep through the biggest heat part of the day, the heat of the day itself. In the wild, they would be just using sleep as a defense mechanism to be able to prevent themselves from doing those things. So they're primarily awake in the more dawn and dusk periods of the day. And with cats, one thing that's really cool to think about is eyesight is their primary sense that they are relying on the most. And so when you get the chance to see the lions and look at their eyes, you're going to notice that they're very amber, they're very yellow in coloration, and that's because during those low light periods of the day, amber or yellow coloring helps funnel light into the pupil itself a lot better. And so a lot of carnivores that are awake at those periods also have similar colored eyes. So when you're going through the park today, across your day, notice which carnivores do have that yellow coloring, because you're going to notice there are quite a few. The tiger, the servals, and then I'll let you figure out the rest if you can find them. So it'll be kind of cool to think about. With lions in the wintertime as well, when it's snowing, they absolutely have a ball. They love the snow itself. We'll build various enrichment items during that period of time that you can only do in the winter. Trust me when I tell you, it takes a 500-pound lion a lot quicker to knock down a snowman that you have built than it takes you to build said snowman. But they have fun, so we like to do that. When it comes to lions, they're also the second largest of all of the big cats. Number 1 is tiger, yeah. Then you have lions, then you have jaguars, leopards, and snow leopards that round out the rest of the big cat family, and as well as the ranking in their sizes. When it comes to Griffin, he is 492 pounds, last we weighed him. Zendaya is 351 pounds, last we weighed her, so they are very large. And with Griffin, he is actually, when he stands on his back 2 feet, fully extended, over 8.5 feet tall. And if you want an actual representation of just how high up he can reach, if you look towards the center of the enclosure, you can actually see that what appears to be, it looked like it was a tree at one point or another. You'll notice it's like a great big scratching post, and you can see just how high up he can reach when he is doing his scratching up there. So very, very large cats indeed. When it comes to the type of training that we do here at the park, it's called positive reinforcement. So all that means is that the animal is asked to do a behavior. If they do the behavior that's asked, they get a positive reward in some form. It's totally dependent on their individual personalities, what that reward might be. It could be something like a food reward, could be a verbal reward, even a tactile reward, or any combination thereof of those kinds of things. And the training itself is completely based on their own participation. If they would like to participate, then they get the positive reward, and if they don't, there's nothing negative whatsoever. They just don't get the reward. We might ask them again or just move on to something different. So it's totally based on whether they want to do it or not in the first place. And when it comes to training, training is in fact the highest form of enrichment that you can give an animal in captivity. Now, that's not to say it's the only form of enrichment. There are tons of various things that they can get day to day that is approved on their enrichment lists, and there's always something that you might be able to see them playing with, or something that you might not be able to see. Something like a scent, an herb, an extract, any one of those types of things could be enrichment for them as well. And when it comes to lions, they're actually quite unique in regards to the rest of the big cat family. So the behavioral things that they have going on are a lot different than some of the other big cats. Big cats, as a whole, besides lions, are solitary. They live on their own. They aren't grouping together unless it is breeding season or if it's a mom with cubs, whereas lions are social. What's a social group of lions called? Pride. I hear a few people saying it is a pride of lions. And so at the top you have your main male lion. He is there for the reproduction as well as the protection of the pride. Then you have the female lions. They're the ones who are doing all of the hunting. Then you have younger lions, males and females, and then you have baby lions as well. And baby lions are actually born completely covered in spots from head to toe. And so, if you're looking at Zendaya throughout the training presentation, what you may notice is she actually still has the remnants of some of those spots on her back legs, which is kind of cool. It gives her something unique in her appearance in comparison to Griffin, who also has something unique with his appearance. But as those baby lions do get older, generally the spots end up fading and they become the more tan coloration that you see here. With younger lions as well, you'll actually see that the social bonding between them is so strong that with younger males, when they get to a point where dad pushes them out of the pride, typically a group of brothers might even come together and form a small pseudo-pride that's called a coalition, where they will actually live together with one another before they end up either starting their own or going on to take over another pride. So they are very unique in the sense that those social bondings are very important to them throughout many stages of their lives. Specifically, they are also very unique in the sense that they are the only cats that you can tell boys and girls apart just by looking at them. So, Zendaya has her spots. That's what makes her look quite unique. What makes Griffin look unique?
Fur.
The mane, yeah. Male lions have that mane. Now, the mane will actually continuously grow throughout the entirety of their lives. So it never stops, and in fact, it gets to be its most majestic towards the ending of their life because it's had the utmost time to be able to grow to the size that you see it as. And with the mane, it actually has a couple of different reasons and purposes for it being there in the first place. For number one, it's a great defense mechanism from other male lions that might be trying to take over the pride itself. You'll notice with Griffin that the mane isn't just around his head and neck, it actually goes down onto his chest, all the way down his belly towards his back legs as well. So it encompasses a lot more of his overall body than we might sometimes think. And with the mane, not only that, but it's very dense, it's very thick, and it almost acts kind of like a hair armor. So if there was another male lion that might be trying to take over a pride, it would have to go through all of that hair armor to get to the most sensitive areas, so the neck as well as the belly. So it's really, really great to be able to defend themselves in that regard. You may also see that the mane is quite a bit different of a color in comparison to the other hair on his body. So it's very dark brown, it's even black in some locations, and so when it comes to the mane itself, it's also a sign of how good their genetics are. So, the better the genetics, the darker the mane typically ends up becoming. Not only that, but sometimes what you'll see is that the further north of the equator you go, the darker the lion's mane ends up becoming occasionally as well. So there are a couple of different reasons. Pretty cool. I will also say quickly, I'll interject and interrupt myself. If at any point in time they do something that you think is really cool, feel free to clap and cheer as loud as you can. They really do thrive off of the positive reinforcement that comes from the crowd itself. And so the more you're into it, the more you clap and cheer, the more they prefer to be into it as well. So feel free to do that at any point in time. I will also say that making sure that if you are moving between sides, that you please stay behind the gravel pathway on the grass while you are doing so. That's greatly appreciated. Now, like I was talking about, it is a sign of good genetics, and females will actually choose which pride they want to be a part of based on that male lion's hair coloration. And so, fellas, it's all about the hair. It happens in the animal kingdom as well. A nice head of hair is definitely an asset when it comes to the lions. And with Griffin, when he jumps across, give him a nice big round of applause for that. It actually looks a lot like a L'Oreal commercial, doesn't it? When his hair is blowing in the wind like that. Pretty impressive, eh? So that is describing the mane overall. Now with Griffin, he's really good at catching, as you can see. Not only can he catch the food with his mouth, but he can also catch it with paw. He's a very good, as we like to say, he's an excellent fielder. The Blue Jays would be very excited to have him, I'm sure. Now, specifically when it comes to Griffin, when he first was catching, he was up on that seat right there. Serena had actually thrown a piece of meat into him, and he was watching it. He was flying in towards him. He opened his mouth, and he swallowed it. And then he proceeded to turn around and go, I have no idea where that piece of meat is. He actually completely lost it. Didn't even realize that he had caught it and swallowed it in one motion. He had to get down off his seat to even look around and see where that piece of meat had gone. So he's figured it out now, as you can see. Now with lions, like I was talking about, they are the laziest of all the big cats. They don't really do a whole lot of anything. And with us here at the park, one of the main reasons why we train is for the medical benefit of the animals themselves. And so getting them to be able to participate in their own medical training is really, really important. One of the ones that we might not necessarily think of off the top of their head that is an important medical behavior is just jumping across the seats right here that you were seeing. So when you see the lions themselves jumping across those seats, they're mimicking a lot of the same movements that they would be doing in the wild if they were hunting their food. They're running, they're jumping, they're lunging, doing all of those kinds of things that they would have to do in the wild if they were hunting. Whereas here in captivity, their food is provided for them. And so when it comes to them and exercising, it's a great way to be able to do all of those same movements, do those exercising, to keep them in peak physical condition. Now with Griffin as well, when he's in this kind of interesting position here, it kind of looks like the downward lion. It's the exact same yoga position as the downward dog.
No, she's on seats.
It's just a lion, so it's cooler. So anytime Zendaya jumps across those seats, make sure you clap and cheer for her as well. Like I was saying, the positive reinforcement extends between both of those lines. I am about to sneeze. Now when it comes to training, there are two different ways that you can have an animal do a behavior. You can capture a behavior or you can manipulate a behavior. And so when it comes to a captured behavior, it's something they do on their own that you think is really cool. You pair it with a hand and verbal cueing, give them that positive reward like I was talking about earlier, and they figure it out in no time. And a great example is there we go. Give him a nice big round of applause for that one. Griffin's talking is an excellent example of a captured behavior. He was doing it one time on his own. Serena went, you know what, that sounds pretty cool. She paired that with her hand and verbal cue, and now it's something that he knows how to do. And it's also really awesome because it allows for us to show everyone what a lion sounds like. Because a lot of the time we somewhat think that they would have a very loud and majestic roar, and that's not exactly the case. It's actually very deep, it's very bassy, and there is an important reason why it is so deep in comparison to just being overtly loud. So the reason why is because they're social, they do live in a pride, and they have territories. They want the territory to be as big as possible, and low-frequency sound waves actually travel farther than high-frequency sound waves do. So by having a deep, bassy roar, it will extend the borders of their territory and give them a nice big area in comparison to if it was just loud. It might not travel as far. And the really cool thing is if anybody here is camping in our campground or thinking about it, this might sway your opinion on it, you can actually hear Griffin making those vocalizations in the evening time from the campground. So it will travel upwards of 8 kilometers at its fullest, and so you can hear him doing all of those sounds right here while you're camping at the park. So it's a really cool thing to think about. Now as Zendaya was jumping across the seats as well, did you notice it was a little bit different than with Griffin? When Griffin was jumping across, he almost has to think about it every single time he does it, whereas Zendaya is just a little firecracker. She's jumping across those seats. That's because the females do in fact do all of the hard work when it comes to the hunting, just like most species. You go, girls. Lions are also true or obligate carnivores, so what that means is that they only eat raw meat. They can be getting anything, a mix of raw beef, chicken, pork, wild game meat. All of those different kinds of meats have different nutrients in them, and as such we keep their diet diverse because then it allows for them to have the best quality in their food and get the most kinds of nutrients, which is really important again in considering their quality of life. Now there are a few other ways that we do medical training with the lions, specifically with Griffin. You may notice at any point in time, if he is asked to open his mouth, it's just a great way for us to be able to check his teeth. And that did come in handy a number of years ago because Griffin actually had a broken tooth, and we got to be able to see that in the training presentation itself. So we didn't have to sedate him to look inside his mouth and see if it needed work. We could actually just get him to open it while we were doing the training. So we can minimize the amount that we have to sedate the animals for those simple kinds of things. When it comes to sedation, there's always a risk that something could go wrong, and so being able to minimize the amount that we sedate them is really important overall. You may also notice at the back of the enclosure there is a little green training window, and that also allows for us to have some medical behaviors done over there. One of which is just we can get them to put their paws through, and we can actually train them to trim their nails. Yes, we can give a 500-pound lion a manicure. And that is something that a lot of people don't think of, but as they get older, they can experience rapid claw growth. That's where they're not scratching down enough to wear their claws, and they'll go all the way around and into the pads of the foot. And so that can cause some complications. So having them be able to be trained to be able to trim their nails at this age is really important, so that as they get older, if it's something we have to do, they already know how to do it. Not only that, but who here was at the bear presentation earlier? A few of us. So you know that we do voluntary blood draws with the bears, and we can do them with the big cats as well. With the lions specifically at the back area, we can have them lay down, we can actually pull their tail through that little training window, and we will actually take blood from the vein at the base of the tail. So we can do voluntary blood draws with them as well. So it's really important, and you can truly see when we are doing the training presentations, just how important the medical benefit and the medical aspect is when it comes to the lions themselves. Now, I'll also say, with lions and their population, something that is important to keep in mind is that they have decreased by over 50% in the last 10 years alone. And so there are a lot of things that we can do in our daily lives that will positively impact lions, even though they're on the other side of the planet, and one of which is just following in their footsteps as ambassador animals, and we can conserve our energy. Remember, they sleep 20 hours a day. They like to conserve their energy, and we can do a similar thing. When we're leaving a room that we're no longer in, shutting the lights off. Give her a nice big round of applause, everyone. Good catch as well. When we're brushing our teeth, not having the water run the entire time, there are tons of little things that we can do to help conserve energy, which will positively impact those animals on the other side of the world. I also like to say that reduce, reuse, recycle is always something that absolutely everyone can do, and it's one of the easiest to get your foot in the doorways of helping with conservation efforts, because whether it's just papers, bottles, whether it's cans, or even bigger things like reducing the amount that goes into the landfill through materials and other things like that, there are tons of stuff that you can do for recycling. Even freezer burnt meat. If you have some, and instead of throwing it away, if you're cleaning your freezers out, we can actually take it in as a donation here at the park, and we can provide it for some of our animals. So not only does that help out them, but it helps out wild animals as well by minimizing the amount that ends up in the landfills. So there are a bunch of different ways that you can help out animals, even though they aren't necessarily in your own backyard. I'll also tell you all what we have going on for the rest of the day. So at 2:30 we have our bear presentation. If you follow the road all the way